when I first moved to Leeds, I was brought up in Carlisle, which is this tiny. It is actually a city, but it's one of the smallest cities in the UK. I think the population's maybe 50,000 people or something like that, maybe 40,000, and I moved to Leeds, which is like 1 million people, and I was like, holy crap, this is, especially when we were driving, and I kind of found this one kind of road that worked to get everywhere.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that was the perfect thing for me. I just felt like there was this one road that I used to get around all of Leeds, and anything off that road just refused to go on. I was like, no. I need to go on this road.
You found your lane.
Just Oxford. Yeah, I found the lane, and I just stuck to it. It took me about 2 or 3 years to kind of be like, okay, it might be time to learn a bit about the geography of the city that you live in. So it's like, what's the population of Minneapolis?
Oh, geez. I feel like it's under 1 million, but the metro combined, because Minneapolis, St. Paul, called the Twin Cities, is just separated by the Mississippi River. But really, it's, it feels like one big metro. But I think it's about 1 million people when you combine those two cities together.
What a great city. Prince, man. Come on. Like, the music scene in Minneapolis,
it's incredible. It's a sleeper. I think that, when people think about the U.S., well, actually, I mean, I would be so curious to know, like, when you think about the U.S., what are the music cities that immediately spring to mind for you?
New York, L.A.
Yes.
So those straight off the bat.
Right. Those are the big two, and those are the traditional two. And do you ever think about Nashville as well?
Yes. Yes, for Nashville. Chicago, obviously, because of the blues scene there.
Yep. That's old school.
Minneapolis, for me, because I think that just the whole Prince connection and that. And then maybe Atlanta as well.
Atlanta's big. Yep.
Yeah.
Austin has emerged as a big music city as well. They do South by Southwest there. There's a ton of things happening there. But I always felt like moving to Minneapolis, that was this crazy sleeper town. All of my friends here make their living playing music to some degree. And it seems like people say, oh, well, you need to be here. You need to be here. You need to be in LA, New York, or Nashville. That's it if you're serious about music. And I just found that hasn't been the case. And I mean, for you, you're not in London, right? I mean,
Dude, I can remember like a really famous bass player whose name I won't mention. I can remember that he was basically like, he was like, oh yeah, great playing, man. Where you living? I was like, oh, in Leeds. And he was like, what's going on in Leeds, man? Like, get your shit together and get, and to be fair, he had a point, but he was more old school. And I think that like, maybe it doesn't matter anymore, or maybe it matters way less than it used to right now, specific. Like, wow. Like right now, over the last few years, with the explosion of obviously we were talking about that in the last episode, social media and the interactivity that's created, I think that it's becoming less and less about where you live. Like, where's Wolfpack from?
They all went to school in Michigan. There was a great music school in Michigan. Yeah, that's where they met. But then they do, I mean, at least not all of them live in LA, but a good number of them now live in LA.
I know they did move to LA, didn't they?
Yeah. When I was in LA the last time, right before COVID, I got to hang out with John Button, and that was a connection via SBL. So it was so cool. Yeah. And what a guy. And he said something so interesting.
And what a bass player as well.
Oh, dude, he's such a beast. That video you put up of him reading that thing and then taking that, developing the bass line, that thing in Player's Path is so sick.
He's so great, isn't he? Yeah.
It's unreal. But he said something that really connected, because I was talking about Minneapolis and I was sort of, waxing on about how like, oh, I think, you can maybe kind of do it everywhere. He said, for sure. You can do it anywhere if you surround yourself with great people and you believe in your community, and that's awesome. He said, but the thing about LA, and I imagine the other big music towns in the world, is that your next door neighbor is the tour manager for this band. The person that lives across the street, 3 houses down, is a drummer and has played in these things. And you're going to meet that person at a coffee shop, and that will bring you connection versus the internet. So what, I've done a lot in my small community of Minneapolis, but then outside of that has been all reaching out via Instagram. And one of the big music towns, it happens on a more personal level. And that's pretty cool. You know, it's pretty cool.
For sure. If I had a friend or one of my kids wanted to be a musician when they're older, I think like my advice probably in terms of like my mindset right now where I am would probably be, hey, you probably, it's going to serve you to get to one of those hubs.
Yeah. Yep.
Just get out there, socializing with these people. You don't know what opportunities are going to rise. So just go chase it in those specific places. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I know we're maybe a bit off topic, but I just want to say one other thing. And to the point of, like, say you're not in one of the big music towns, you go, oh, you're just bemoaning. Oh, well, I'm not in LA, I'm not in London, I can't do it. I want you to think about this. I got to tour Motown the last time I was in Detroit. I got to go on a tour of Motown. And if you think about what Berry Gordy built in Motown, he was in Detroit, which was not a music city. It became one because of Berry Gordy. And he had this thing of, well, look around his neighborhood, and there were these dudes that sang doo-wop on the corner, and they became the Temptations. There was a girl that had a great voice just up the street. Her name was Aretha, Mr. and Mrs. Franklin's daughter. Right? And he had this thing of believing in his community and looking around and going, well, I'm not in any of these places. What can I do with the resources I have in this town? And that became hugely inspirational to me to look at artists that I played with, like, Cara Loudon, or there's some artists that are Minneapolis that are not superstars, but I wanted to start treating them as such. I wanted to start thinking about my friends and my colleagues in this sleeper music town as superstars. And that changed everything for me, of like thinking about, well, what can I build where I'm at? I have a family. I'm not going to move to Los Angeles. What can I build here in Minneapolis? And I think that's so important no matter where you are.
That's super insightful.
Yeah. It's like, look around and say, who is the star in this place that I can start to collaborate with,
Man, I'll tell you what, just sort of like leapfrogging off that, off the back of that, in terms of Berry Gordy and what he did in Detroit, and there was really no scene there before he was kind of sort of like the catalyst of that. Like, I think that through my experiences, I've seen people in a music scene who are the Berry Gordy, not to obviously that level, but they just come. So when I first moved to Leeds, when I was, in my early 20s, maybe 21, there was a guy who, and nobody really understood how important he was for the jazz scene.
Yeah.
But he was organizing stuff. He was putting on gigs. He was the catalyst, right?
Right.
And nobody understood. And then he moved away, and you felt this sudden slump.
Yeah.
It instantly hit me of how important it is in these small scenes just to sort of, to really, if there is somebody that's a catalyst like that, just keep in mind that they're doing great work. They're just doing they're doing something, and they don't get any thanks. They're not Berry Gordy, right? They're getting no thanks.
Right.
But
they're organizing the jam, right? They're doing all these things. I was talking to Andres Rott, and he's in Buenos Aires, and he was telling me that he did this thing, that he started to do his duo music stuff as a result of just organizing these nights. There was like a restaurant or something where he would just, like, he has been that for Buenos Aires in terms of a jazz and sort of small ensemble collaborations. Like, he's been this guy of, like, every week I would organize this thing and bring singers down, and
absolutely,
it's huge. That stuff's huge.
Yeah, you don't need to have to wait for the scene to emerge. You can actually create the scene. Yes. Like the guy I'm talking about, he wasn't kind of sort of like, he was not crazy talented. He was not this like bombastic kind of like, socialite who was like everybody loved. He wasn't that guy. He was super quiet. He was a decent bass player, but he was just really dedicated to making it happen and actually just putting these gigs on, doing the jam nights.
Yes.
And I think that for all musicians, especially if you're in somewhere where there's maybe nothing much going on in your town or your city, you can actually try and create a scene yourself. And you can even create a scene within a scene. If there is something going on, you can create a sub scene within that actual ecosystem. And I think it's, we're always, or at least myself, I'm always kind of like questioning, hey, should I actually do this thing? Should I do this? It's like one of these personal things that I'm trying to get rid of. But I just need to, myself personally, I just need to get much better at being that catalyst, stepping over. I think we talked about in the last episode, hanging myself over that cliff, making sure that I'm just not waiting for the permission of somebody else to say, "Oh, you can do that." I think that as humans, we're always waiting for permission, and I say, "Fuck permission! I reckon just go and do it." Put yourself out there and take the risk.
Yes, it will always lead to something, right? Like just believing in something, believing in yourself, believing in the people around you, and doing something. It may not lead to the thing you're thinking it will lead to, but it will lead somewhere. And it's huge. It's huge to not be just stifled by, I love that, not waiting for permission and not going, well, I'm in Cincinnati, I'm in Durham. There's nothing I can do. May as well hit the coal mines because I'm hitting you with the only UK trivia I know right now. no, organize something, get some people out. It's doable in any place.
Yeah, I think waiting for permission is like a silent epidemic of not only musicians but just humans in general. And my hat comes off to anybody that doesn't have that thing. Like when I see somebody and they're obviously they're out there doing it, and for whatever reason they've been able to shake that off. They don't need permission. They're just going to go for it. It's so inspiring, honestly. That jumps to mind. A musician that obviously has done that for whatever reason, is Jack Stratton of Wolfpack.
Oh, 100%.
He just came, it was just out of nowhere, so left of center, so kind of just, it's like he was years before his time, really.
Yes.
He kind of just had a cultural feel. He obviously spotted that. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe it was just really unique to him and he just wanted to do that. But when I look at Jack, I was like, that dude wasn't waiting for anybody's permission. He just went and did it.
Absolutely. Yes. And to hear Corey Wong talk about Jack, he talks about how Jack plays the internet like an instrument. Like he understood at a very, very deep level how to use the internet in a fun, creative, engaging, inclusive way to bring people into what this felt like a family, and essentially was just a group of music nerds from like friends from college, And he figured out a way to engineer this movement. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. It is unbelievable. And it's everything down to everything. The thing I love about Jack, that is obviously everything is considered, like obviously the sound, but the visuals, the aesthetics, they all support each other. And it's done in such a great way, but in a really kind of freeing way. They didn't have any cash to do what they did. It's all bootstrapped. And they made all of their weaknesses actually strengths in terms of the final product of Wolfpack, what they became.
Yes.
All of the weaknesses, all of the, hey, we're going to have to shoot this on an iPhone or whatever it was.
Yep.
All of that became the strength and not the weakness.
Oh, and it's so great. I mean, just, working with Corey Wong since that experience, he then brought in a lot of those elements into his own thing. And I mean, whenever he does a session, he's incredible. He's incredible.
The dude's an alien.
I know. Whenever he does a session, he'll have a friend come in. There's a guy in Minneapolis named Pistol Pete, man. Pistol Pete is the best. And he comes in with a gimbal. He has his own gimbal, but he uses your iPhone. So, thank you. He'll take your iPhone, put it on the gimbal, and then he'll just shoot the session as a one shot. And then suddenly you have music video content. You have, and before it seemed like before Wolfpack, it seemed like to make a music video or to make a production of a studio recording or anything just felt prohibitively expensive, too much gear.
Absolutely.
But then, like, what if you got your buddy that has some good musical chops and can think in that way about getting camera shots, and now he's on the singer for verse 2, but here comes that sick fill, and he knows kind of enough to just go around and, and get the drummer for that fill, and, it's amazing. And it happens so fast. And then you have all of this content. And it's very low cost, very cool. Now you have to be surrounded with great people that can play a take.
You do. You do. And what I love as well is there's actually been sort of like stylistically that actually has created a real, like a, what's the word? It's a style. It's a style of shot. It's a style of video. So it obviously Wolfpack did it. Modern Day Jukebox. Can you remember Modern Day Jukebox?
Yep.
Yeah, the guys that they did kind of jazz versions of popular songs. They always did it on a one shot, just one camera. And then off the back of that, obviously Scary Pockets.
Yes.
Who obviously they crushed it again, one shot, one camera. And that's Jack, isn't it? He's another machine when it comes to
I know.
Patreon. He's the CEO and founder of Patreon.
I just found that out. I didn't even know that. Someone was telling me that. I'm like, what? He made that? Yeah. Crazy.
He's a creative machine. Yes. He's a machine, dude. But yeah, so I just love it. And the weird thing that I've experienced as well is that because I've worked with a lot of videographers, it is actually, if a professional videographer is not really following these, I suppose, these creators, if they're not following them, they don't get it.
I know.
It's been really hard for me to sync some of my guys up with the actual what's going on right now on the socials, on YouTube, that new style of that one shot. They don't get it. They want 5 cameras.
Yeah.
They want to make it as complicated as possible. And it's definitely been a challenge for me. So if anybody's listening to this and you're about to work with videographers, it's just an interesting thing to note that there's sometimes a gap between kind of where the trend is going and where their professional kind of skill set lies. There's sometimes a gap between that, and you need to kind of line that up for them.
Yes. You say, watch this.
I know.
Yeah.
Dude,
or
should we
hire your friend, or hire your friend that has good musical instincts and take a chance on somebody that maybe isn't a videographer and watch them become one.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, like you've probably seen on YouTube now, like there's like full documentaries that people have made on iPhones that are just beautiful. They look killer.
Absolutely, so cool.
Yeah. Sure. So, guys, girls, I say guys all the time. I'm so self-conscious of saying guys at the minute. I think it's because obviously there's been a lot of social pain, let's put it as social pain that's happened online, well, not even online, over the last few years. And it's definitely, I am one of them. I'm like, hey dudes, like I call my kids dudes. I call my mum a dude. I call my wife a dude. I call my daughter, hey dude. She calls me, we're all dudes, we're all guys.
Right.
And now I'm like, I'm reevaluating how to speak and being self-conscious about that.
I know.
It's a new world, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. And we're the same age as well, so like literally the same age. When was your birthday?
October 29, 78.
Got it. So you're slightly older. Mine's July. I'm July.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm your July 10. Then. If anybody wants to, shoot me a birthday card, July 10. But man, today we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people, like last week we talked about social media and why it's a really interesting time for creators, for musicians, and for those to get involved in social media and how they can leverage and how they can harness the communities on social media channels to essentially kind of like, open their opportunities as a musician or as a creator. And I think that one thing that comes with that is haters, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Haters. And and we just in total transparency, like 10 minutes before we jumped online, we were like, what are we talking about today? Because with these podcasts, if you missed the first episode, obviously go back and check it out. We were talking about social media, as I've just mentioned. But with these episodes that are obviously all going to be Ian and I, we're kind of just chewing the fat. We're just openly talking about things that we think are interesting for bass players, for musicians, whether it be social media or haters or our inspirations or motivation or routines or whatever it is. We're just kind of like openly exploring them between ourselves and hopefully adding value to you guys and girls as well. Yes. Damn! I know. Openly exploring them, hopefully so that we understand ourselves better, but also bring you guys along with us as well. And I think that I just want to put it out there that I always think that discussing stuff like this, and some people do it through journaling, right? Some people actually journal every day, and they say that they understand themselves better through doing so, through going through the process of journaling. And that isn't anything that I've done in the past, but I definitely I'm a big believer that just openly talking about stuff helps me understand where I'm coming from, my own understanding of it, my own perspective of it, and just where I kind of sort of like, where I am in terms of that subject. Like somebody I was doing that with today was Phil, who Ian, who Phil's the director of operations at SBL.
Phil's the best.
He's a beast. He's like, he takes care of us all, and super talented dude and great bass player as well. And just through talking through this thing with him, he really helped me just get clarity around the particular subject that we were trying to, it was like a product development thing. We were trying to, and I'd sat and thought about that, for hours over the last week on my own. But just speaking to Phil for like 30 minutes, maybe 60 minutes, gave me the clarity, and I think it gave him the clarity as well. So I think it's really interesting. I expect that's why, this type of long form open conversation content is really popular these days.
Yeah, for sure.
Joe Rogan,
Yes. And, as much as I love gear and string gauge and all that stuff, I really enjoy talking about these sort of more like life, conceptual ideas and things that are outside of the very, very nitty gritty. Now, that said, faithful SBL podcast listener, if you want Scott and I to do an episode all about the difference between, 50s, 60s, and 70s era Fender, or the difference between Custom Shop and Mulan P-Bass and Olinto P-Basses.
It's coming. Oh, if you want to hear about my obsession with nut widths, and just in case you misheard what I said there, I mean like the nut of a bass.
Yeah. Careful, Divine.
Yeah, I've got like an obsession with nut width at the minute. Yes. We will get to talking about that stuff for sure. Yeah. But anyway, haters, Ian, what do you define a hater as? What do you feel one is?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I was thinking about what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, right? Which is people that have figured out maybe a lane, right? And so you've got somebody like Jack Stratton who's figured out this amazing lane. And with that success comes jealousy. And I feel like haters, or people that leave mean comments or disparaging remarks, either on your YouTube videos or on your Instagram or whatever, I choose to think that those people are coming from a place of insecurity for themselves. I refuse to go down the road of like, oh, this is an evil person and now I need to fire back. I'm going to punch back twice as hard. I refuse to go down that road. Yeah. I try to think about them as people that are hurting. Typically, I have found that I get the most hate. So, for me, that's just someone that leaves a negative comment, either about my
Got it,
appearance or that I'm doing something wrong or that I'm not saying this thing correctly or, and sometimes people get in this zone of like correction, and that's fine. And I've learned a lot actually from comments. People are like, oh, it wasn't that, it was this. I'm like, okay. Internet is going to internet, right?
Yeah.
But when someone kind of makes a personal attack, I find that typically, I choose to believe that is coming from a place of jealousy, from a place of maybe they're going, God, I could do that, but they haven't done it, right? And it's killing them that this hack right here is the guy on screen that's doing it, right? And they could have done it. And, if only their circumstances. And so the manifestation of those regrets, of those insecurities, is to angrily leave a comment. For sure. And I have ways that I deal with it, and ways that I talk to my kids about it, because you and I have kids similar age. They're going to grow up with all this stuff. Yeah. And I too, before I have an opportunity to go into like, oh, here's how I deal with this, I wanted to say, I was really, really inspired by something that you did regarding this. There was someone who had an issue with a YouTube video that we had made. It was a video that I had made, and it went up on YouTube, and this particular person was like, oh, this was my idea, and it was stolen. And he was sort of talking about the concept of the video, which is hilarious because, no one can no one gets to own a concept. And there are tons of creators that have done this, but he felt that this was his thing, and he was really upset. And he went on a tirade and got a lot of his friends and followers to leave mean comments, started a big talk-based thread. And I felt so attacked, but wasn't saying anything because this wasn't my platform. This was all about SBL. I mean, I happened to be the presenter of the video, but this was your company. And dude, I have to say, the way you handled it was remarkable. And I would love.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was. And I can talk about how you handled it, but I wonder if you would like to speak to that at all, or even in general, just how you have handled that over the years, because you went from no one knows who you are and you're putting up videos on the internet to the most popular subscription-based company for music, regardless of instrument, in the world, in the history. And I know that you have gotten a lot of hate and had to deal with a lot of this. And I felt like I was getting a masterclass in dealing with it from how you dealt with this situation. So, I mean, I've got some ideas, but I too want to hear from the master. Like how you've thought about this, because you have. And it's obviously, when it happens, it hurts. Like, where people, I remember you even saying to me, like, geez, sometimes I think these people forget that I'm a person. That it's that's SBL, the autonomous AI machine. No, it's Scott Devine who's building this thing, and he's a person. And so I would love to know, I mean, if you want to speak specifically to that incident or to any things that just have helped you deal with this, I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, well, for me, it's been a learning curve. Like, I've never got it really wrong. I can definitely say that. I feel that even though I've been really hurt by it in the past, and I've seen a comment or a thread appear or whatever it is, I've been really hurt. And I will speak to that in a minute, but it's definitely got better with time in terms of how to deal with it. And I think that I was lucky enough to have a situation happen maybe 3 years ago or something like that. And somebody was really, really pissed off. Somebody was really pissed off I can't even remember what the problem was. Yeah. They were really pissed off though. And they'd gone and started a talk-based thread about it. And I was like, wow, this is like, there's one thing when somebody leaves a comment, there's stages there's levels of craziness, right? There's someone leaving a comment on one of your videos. That's like level one.
Yep.
Level 2 is when there's a bunch of people in the comments and they're all saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And they're all connecting with each other. And they're all like, yeah, we hate you. We hate you. So that's like level 2.
Right.
I would say that level 3 is when somebody kind of reaches out to you directly and gives you a bit of a beast in. So that's,
Yes.
you know, it's similar to level 1, level 2, but it's just a different nuanced thing. You know,
Like
they
an
can reach
email
out
or a
and just say-
DM or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but honestly, that happens way less than number 1 and 2, because I think that for whatever reason, people feel empowered about doing this stuff in public, and I'm not against it at all. You know, if you feel that you want to do that in public, go for it. I'm just saying that there is a difference. You know, so then there's they DM you or. You know, do that thing. And then there's number 4, which is like the highest level that I've experienced, is when they go onto another forum, they create a thread all about you and the issue that they have.
Yes.
And then they go to town on you, right? And they like full on burn you.
Right.
So that happened quite early on, like 3 years ago or something like that. And the great thing about that situation is that I had dealt with level 1, 2, and 3 before.
Yes.
So I was like, I was hardened to it a little bit. I knew that even though I knew to ignore however you feel for the next 10 minutes, just ignore it. Doesn't matter.
Right.
You'll have some sort of like emotional response. Just like if somebody walked up to you and slapped you around the face,
Yes.
you will have an emotional response to it, right? So just ignore that emotional response. Ignore how you feel about it to begin with. Just let it simmer, okay? So after that, it was like, okay, what can I do about this? You know, what can I do about this? There's a thread. So I read what the guy had written, and I was like, oh, okay, I understand what had happened. He had an account issue. So he'd had an account issue. He'd logged into the website, and for whatever reason, the browser that he was using hadn't let him see any content. So he'd logged into something. He saw no content. And I figured out this. I was like, oh, I can see what's happened here. But he thought, because of whatever reason, he thought, oh, these guys have scammed me.
Oh, crazy. Right.
I've paid some money. There's nothing there. Now I'm going to go onto onto a forum and say Scott's Base Lesson scam.
Right.
And then he wrote this whole piece about how it was a scam, yada yada. So I was like, okay, what do I do about this? And luckily, I was like, okay, I understand what the problem is. I can see it from his point of view. And I went on there and I wrote like a few paragraphs. I was like, hey man, I'm so sorry. It looks like this might have happened. And I just explained the situation. And unfortunately then, because the thread had kind of like fired up a little bit by this time. I hate that Scott guy. I hate that dude. Right? So I explained. Now the interesting thing about the online landscape is that people kind of go on these witch hunts, right? So as soon as I kind of sort of like pointed it out, what had actually happened, so sorry, then it all turned back on him. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then suddenly he's the one under fire by all of the guys that were witch hunting. It's very strange, like the online thing, this animosity that everybody's got, or this not animosity, this anonymity that people have.
Yes.
Even though you can see their name and their face, they can still, it's a little bit like road rage, right? So people will swing back and forward. So anyway, that was my first experience of level 4 hate, when he goes to a thread on a Talkbase or whatever. And it was great. It ended great. I think I dealt with it really fantastically, or as well as I could at that time. He reached out. He was like, I'm so sorry, man. Can you please ask for this thread to be deleted? This is like, because people were DMing him, so like, how dare you start this thread about SBL? And I'm telling you, that has happened a few times actually, where people have been like, please get them to delete this thread.
That happened with the one that I brought up as well. And let me just point something out that I know you know, but that anybody listening, the way you started your response was, hey man, I'm so sorry. That takes empathy, humility, and huge self-confidence to not let, like, I love that thing that you said about not ignore your emotional response, ignore the knee-jerk. Like, you want to just come out with guns, right? You want to, there's a part in everybody when they get attacked, right, that they want to also attack. And if
Yeah,
you can
absolutely,
say, and if you can say, oh my goodness, man, I am so sorry that you had that experience, you automatically win. Like you are the bigger person.
I think
everybody
I
sees
think so,
that, right? And so I love that. I love that you came at it with empathy, because that's what I think it's all about, right?
Yeah, well, given that first experience, what happened with the first experience on that was on talkbase.com, that specific one.
Yep.
That thread got deleted and stuff like that. After that, like, so, and this is just, we've got like, I don't know, like 1 million people, almost 1 million people following us on YouTube. We've got, 300,000 or something on IG. This kind of stuff just happens. So it's part of the deal.
Yes.
When we've got sort of like a platform this big, this just happens. So that's also sort of like something I do bear in mind. Comes with the territory, right? It's like, if you're going to be some sort of, I don't know, sort of like super hunky pop star, you're probably going to get a few stalkers, right? It comes with the territory. Luckily for me, I haven't got any sort of, I'm not hunky, I'm a bass player, so I don't have any stalkers. If anybody's wondering if they could stalk me, I could do with a couple of stalkers. It might help build my ego. But anyway... But it kind of just comes with the territory. So, But what I learned is from that first experience is that just being super transparent, hearing them out, number one, being super transparent, because I'm not like an evil guy. I suppose that really helps me out. So I can be super transparent. So when somebody's got an issue, I can definitely just come from a place of truth and just be like, oh, I get it. I'm so sorry that you felt like that. Here's what actually happened. And that's exactly that talk-based thread that you were talking about there, where it was like, when I got notified about it, like, luckily we've got a really fantastic community. And I saw that it was actually on another forum that somebody flagged, hey, somebody should give Scott a shout about this so he can actually just go over and sort of like speak. Yeah, just address it, right? So, and what I found is through being like transparent, and that first experience, I thought to myself, what's the best way of dealing with that next time? And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to make a video. Because people are actually, you can be a text warrior. Everybody can be a text warrior. But it takes like another level of energy to be like, you know what, I'm actually going to make a video. I really care about, if somebody's bitching, I don't want them to bitch. Not for me. I don't want them to bitch for them. I don't want them to feel upset. Right. So I'm like, I'm going to make a video for you. Right. So the next time it happened, I actually made a YouTube video for somebody, and it was on a forum, and I got that YouTube video and I embedded it, and I didn't know how it was going to go down. I was like, oh no, I'm just being super transparent in this video. I'm just like, hey, this is, and I think that specific one was, hey, why is Scott doing all these vlogs on YouTube? We don't want to watch him vlog. We just want lessons. So I made this video and I was like, I'm so sorry, guys. I was like, I kind of wish that I could just make, regular lessons, but the way that the YouTube algorithm is working right now, it's like our hands are tied. So all we're doing is we're actually creating the content that YouTube, that specific platform, the algorithm is telling us to create. It's not that I want to be out there and I want to be the star. I'm just, I'm looking at the subscriber numbers. I'm trying to learn how we can grow the channel. And that type of content is really over-indexing at the minute on YouTube. Therefore, we're just, having to do that. And if I do any other lessons, like regular lessons, they get way less views. And I'm talking about the difference between, 5,000 views and 50,000 views. And because we're trying to grow SBL, and again, it was just this amazing response. People were just like, whoa, this is amazing. Thank you so much for actually explaining and talking us through it. I showed them screenshots. I was like, check out, this is what's going on.
Wow.
I brought them in. I was like, look, it hurts me, obviously, I publish a video, and then underneath the video, there is 100 plus people telling me that this content is crap. Do not create this content. Please just go back to creating regular lessons.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
This is on YouTube. I was like, it hurts me. But on the flip side, YouTube is telling me something else. So I'm a rock in a hard place. So I would love for you guys, just if you know that any other bass players out there that are feeling this way, just let them know, and let them know why we're doing this and that we're doing our best to serve the bass players that are following us, but also serve YouTube and their specific rules too, because they're kind of the boss. YouTube's the boss, right?
Yeah.
In a way, the algorithm dictates what content will work.
Sure.
The end. And if you don't adhere to the algorithm,
of course,
you're out.
And your goals, and I like too about this that you're not saying, oh, okay, oh, geez, sorry, bass player community that only wants, this small little niche channel. Okay, maybe I'll conform to that, and I guess I won't play the YouTube game because you guys want this thing. You are putting your business priorities and your own personal goals first. And say, and then also able to empathetically say, look, I know that maybe not everyone likes this content, but I'm trying to do a thing. I'm trying to do a thing that hopefully will be then beneficial for everyone because it'll bring more people into this wonderful community. We'll have more resources to do different things. So here's how I'm going to play this game. And I like that.
Yeah.
Because you're not saying, oh, geez, yep, sorry, guys. Yeah, maybe I kind of got caught up in you're saying, this is the way to win on YouTube. I want to win. And 100%. That's badass.
Yeah, like I think just the truth. Like sometimes I talk to my wife, and I'll talk to the other thing that you mentioned, that the one that recently happened as well. I'll talk to that in a minute. But something I talk to like Lisa about all the time. It's like we'll have something happen, like I don't know. Somebody will be doing a bit of work on the house. Plumber will be doing some work on the house, and we messed up. We're not going to be in when he's here, or we've double booked him, and the electrician's not going to be there at the right time or something. And like Lisa's like, oh no, what are we going to do about it? Like, what should we tell them? What should we tell them? And my answer is always the same. I think we should just tell them the truth.
Yeah.
And just be like, hey man, I'm so sorry. We totally messed up.
Right.
So I always come from this sort of like, if like you're really transparent and you've just got this truthfulness, that's the end.
That's it.
Just that's it. Like obviously, if I was an evil guy, it might not work out. But luckily, I just like I'm a pretty nice dude, and I just come from this kind of sort of like always just tell the truth, and everything will come out cool. And with that situation, the one that happened recently, that off the back of the YouTube video that you made, and somebody thought that I guess that they thought that we'd stolen his IP. It was like his intellectual property. He thought that format of video, I think, was his intellectual property. And ultimately, I did the same thing. I made a video, and I was like, hey, and I published that on Talkbase.
Yep.
And then the thread was closed down. I think the video probably still up. And I was like, hey, man, I am so sorry you felt like that. And I was like, the reality of it is that I didn't reply to your email because I'm just super busy. And like, I'd not responded to his email. For anybody listening, it wasn't like 6 months. It was like maybe like 10 days or something like that. I'd not responded to his email. And I really wanted him to get involved in SBL. I was like, I really want this guy to get involved in SBL because he's awesome. Mm-hmm. And then we published a video that was a similar format to a video that he'd published. And he thought, oh, they've not emailed me back,
right?
And they've stolen my idea. Now the actual reality is that Ian had recorded that video like a month or 6 weeks before any conversation had taken. Yeah, it was quite a while before, right? So I made this video and I was like, I'm so sorry you feel like that. Just in total transparency, I've just been crap with email. My inbox is a nightmare. I definitely was going to email you back. I always email everybody back, and the video that you think that we stole the idea about from, that was actually recorded like way before you actually released that video. So I know it might feel like we've replicated that format, which is badass, by the way. And I said that, I was like, which is an amazing format, but we really weren't stealing any kind of sort of like idea about formats or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened in the thread, and I kind of, because of the experience, and I kind of felt bad about this actually, I knew that because the thread was like 3 pages deep, everybody was loving it because people love going on a witch hunt. I knew that it was all going to turn around and people were going to start attacking him, and that's the bit that I hate about it. And at no point, if anybody's listening to this, at no point was there anything that I said that made the guy who was bitching seem bad or anything. Like, I didn't say anything. I was just like, I'm so sorry you felt like this. This is actually what happened. I'm so sorry again. I mean, like, just told him the truth, basically.
Yeah.
And then all of the witch hunters, they all just turn around and then witch hunt on him, basically,
right.
Which is really bad. And then the same thing happens. He's feeling terrible. He's trying to defend himself. Because a lot of these guys don't, a lot of the guys that go on the witch hunts on forums or on the socials and stuff like that, they've never experienced anybody calling them out
Yeah.
or going after them online.
Right.
And I've been lucky enough I can remember publishing my first YouTube video and getting I can remember the first negative comment I ever got.
Oh, really?
And I thought about it for a freaking week.
What was it? Do you remember? Do you remember what it was?
Yeah. It was like, this guy can't even play. What is anybody watching his videos for?
Yeah, sure.
And I was like, I thought about it for a week.
Yes.
That one comment, right? So just imagine now how that feels for one of these like keyboard warriors who happens to, like go on a rant about, something online, and then suddenly, and they're always the ranter.
Yes.
They're never getting ranted at.
Not the rantee.
And suddenly they've got 30 people all witch hunting on them, telling them that, it must be a horrible experience. Like, I wouldn't want to be that guy.
No.
So, because for me, it's been like a real slow burn. I've gone from like that one bad comment to now, I don't know, man, I probably I think our videos get viewed something like, we've got 100 million views on the YouTube channel. So if you want to talk about negative comments, we probably get 500 a day, telling me that I'm the devil or something like that. I'm not sure. I just don't care. Like, for that, there's a lot of keyboard warriors out there. So, and that again, it comes with the territory. But yeah, for me, I built that muscle of how to emotionally maneuver around stuff like that. But anyway, I'm not sure I did. You obviously you think that I dealt with it really awesomely. I'm not sure whether I kind of described it awesomely how I did it, but that's where it comes from.
And the thing that I just want to add is the empathy piece up top is so huge, but then also holding your ground and saying, hey, I'm so sorry that you felt this way, but you can't copyright a format. I mean, there's tons of, and then you even gave examples of like, there's these people that are all doing this format. I mean, that'd be like saying, hey man,
everybody's doing it. Yeah.
Like, I came up with the idea of the 3-minute, 30-second pop song format. No. Like,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so to say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you had a negative experience, but also I'm going to keep doing my thing, I think is great. I think too, like at a granular level, like, obviously, most people listening to this don't have a monster base content empire like you do, right? So, I had this really interesting experience of not having very much YouTube presence at all. I've been active on Instagram for a few years before SBL, but YouTube specifically, not hardly at all. Done a few things for a couple of companies. Like, I did a video for Lakeland, I did a video for Dark Glass, and we're all, pretty well received. And I just remember, before I did my first video for SBL, I remember thinking, the sharks are coming. Like, this is, like, I have to get really, and so what I feel, and I've gotten plenty of negative comments, I always feel like a negative comment is better than no comment at all, first of all. I mean, obviously, people want to get positive comments, but the worst thing that can happen to you when you pour yourself into making something is no one cares. That's the worst thing, actually. So I think no comments is worse than 100 negative comments, because what I see, the way I choose to look at negative comments is that it's stirring something in someone. I mean, you have to make a pretty bold statement, either with your playing or with your education or whatever, to make somebody get maybe upset enough to say something to you, right?
Yeah, and sometimes they're right.
Yes, absolutely.
Sometimes they're right. Sometimes you read a comment and you're like, okay, maybe they've got a point.
I know.
Maybe I could have done a better version of that, or whatever it was. I think that there's different. Like, they're kind of not haters. People giving you a negative comment doesn't actually mean that it's a hater, right?
That's true. Oh boy, that's really good. Yes, that's so true. I think I've responded to people saying, "Oh man, I'm always learning," and I feel like if you can, if it's a negative comment or if it's hate, if you can respond in a way that is that is empathetic to the poster, it always goes better than to try to fire back or to try to be right, try to say, like I just put it, the Rush video just went out, and the number of people that are like, oh, you're playing this wrong, or what, I mean, like, oh, thank you so much for the learning opportunity, even though in my mind, I'm like, I absolutely didn't play that wrong.
Like they have got to feel like, again, there's like different types. There's people that like, so for instance, I'll give you an example, right? Somebody's like, I hate the way this guy speaks.
Yes.
He stumbles over his word. That's just like pure, they're just being a dick, right? Just get out of my way,
Yes.
But then there's other people. So there's other people that might be, I might have taught something, and they might be like, I'm not sure that's exactly right. So it's just, they're not criticizing, but they're just giving you feedback, and it's not great. Sure. But it's and sometimes they just need heard as well. Like sometimes they're right, I think, and sometimes when when they're being a bit edgy, the best way to deal with it is just acknowledge that you've heard them. Hey man, thanks for the comment.
Yes.
Like I actually think this, or I can see where you're coming from, but maybe this. I mean, like. And it depends on how much you want to engage as well.
Like, of course.
You can. There's levels of engagement. You need to find your own personal comfort level with that. But I think that ultimately, like the keyboard warriors, and I hate to say that word actually, because there's some of these guys and girls are great, right? So the people that are commenting, a lot, even if it's like a negative thing, it's, you just need to take it with a pinch of salt, take it with a pinch of salt and try not to have like a knee-jerk emotional reaction to everything that doesn't say you're awesome. I mean, like we all love the awesome comments, but all of them comments that are in the other category, they're not all the same. Some people are giving you like a little bit of feedback. Some people are saying you could have done a better job.
Yes.
Some people are, some people are saying that, you talk funny and they don't like your face.
Right.
I mean, those things are not all the same. So we as humans really need to remind ourselves that if it's not an awesome comment, it doesn't mean that it's always a negative comment.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that it's a hater, right?
Yeah, because emotionally we feel maybe like it is. Oh, you didn't love my stuff. You didn't love me. I hate you.
And that then pulls at your own self-confidence and your own issues of insecurity, right? All that stuff. Yeah. I had someone make a mean comment about it actually made me laugh out loud. Someone said, oh, great. I found, is there not a platform that this guy won't annoy me on, right? Because, he found me on multiple platforms, and it cracked me up. And I messaged him back and said, I get it. I mean, sometimes I see myself on video. I'm like, oh, okay. Like it's a little over the top, but it's who I am. I mean, that's the thing is it really genuinely is who I am, but I'm also self-aware enough to know that like, if I saw me, and I didn't know me, I might go, oh, this guy's a little, is this guy for real? So I just said, man, I totally get it. And then what I've done on some kind of mean-spirited comments is I'll go into their page and look for something that I genuinely think is cool. And typically it's there. YouTube, not always, because it's a lot of people don't have content, but on IG, tons of people have content, right? So I went into this guy's page and found a video, and he was playing this cool thing. And I said to him, hey, I really actually like the video you posted on April 7, whatever. I love this thing that you're doing. And he DM'd me and said, man, thanks for saying that. And then he went into this whole thing, Scott, like, man, thank you so much for saying that. I've been trying really hard to do this thing. This year has been brutal. I lost all these gigs. I've just been busking. My mom got sick. And now we're homies. Like now we comment on each other's stuff, and it's so fascinating to just not to refuse to think about people that leave you hate, feedback, negative comments, whatever it is. It is so critical to not blow those people off as just idiots, right? If it's in you, if you're at a level like I don't see. you don't have the time to dig into every comment, right? And I don't really either, but I have a smaller following, obviously, on my IG. So I go in sometimes and say, hey, I get it. Thanks for checking out the video. By the way, you're crushing this thing. And it almost always leads to then a more positive encounter.
Oh yeah, always. Yeah.
And it's cool. And then I really then value those things. I mean, it hasn't happened a ton, but I have about 3 or 4 people that I was like, ooh, they left something that kind of stung. And then I was just like, how should I do this? And then go in, talk about something on their thing that I genuinely dig. And now, and then it leads to a positive thing.
Yeah, sometimes when somebody's sort of like generally saying like, "Oh, I hate the way that this guy looks," or "I hate the way this guy talks," I mean, this guy annoys me on every single platform. Yeah, that's one of those they kind of forgot your human moments.
Yeah,
I mean, like they just forget that you're actually a real dude who has feelings and stuff like that. Like one thread on a. And this was like years ago. No, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. There was this thread, and like people were bitching about the way I spoke, and I commented, and I was like, "Oh, ... I was like, hey guys, just to let you know, I'm a real person, you know, with a winky face,
like hello."
And that's all I said. Yeah. And then everyone's just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." There was just sort of like, "Oh, we're so sorry." Well, it's socials are weird. It's a weird place. But hey, it doesn't always happen on socials either. You know, it doesn't always happen on there. Like I'm a firm believer that there's, and I'm using this phrase haters loosely here, but there are people that are your friends. There are people in your family that will not believe in what you're doing and will actually like downplay it to your face and be like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, what are you even doing that for? Like, I've had that. I've had that a lot in my. If I'd listened to them guys, I wouldn't be here. Like, oh man.
And
like,
that
some of them
so
were really great friends as well. That was a hard thing to maneuver around. Some of them were great friends.
I've had that as well. I'd love to hear. I mean, it would be so valuable to hear how you maneuvered around that. How can you?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you the interesting. So if it's a family member, it's hard that you have to not engage with their input, basically, if it's a family member, right? And I mean, sort of like, you know, whether it's like a brother, sister, or parent, or wife, husband, you know, because they can do it too. Like I can remember Lisa saying to me, like, I was working on SBL. I've been working on SBL for like a year or 18 months. I'd made like 200, 300 bucks or something like that. And she was like, how long are you going to do this for? You're killing yourself. You shouldn't do this. You're earning no money. You're working on this 12 hours a day for nothing. Like, when are you going to pack it in? And I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to keep going. You know, you've got people that are going to say that to you in your family, but the worst, a couple of friends, I actually had to like dial them out of my life basically, and just I had to make this conscious decision. I was like, this isn't going to work out. I'm just going to have to step away from that relationship. And that is a really sad thing, because I love like gagging around with these dudes and just sort of like the vibe and stuff like that, but nothing I could say. It was just having such a negative impact on how what I was doing and my belief in myself. It was basically knocking my self-confidence, and they were knocking what I believed I could actually do and create. They were just like, who do you think you are, man? Like, really?
Like hold on.
This, like, what's this internet thing that you're actually doing? Like, are you just going to get, like, I mean, it was all of that, but it was actually, and it was in everything, you know, like seeds of it. And I'm just a big believer that, that like negativity that seeps in through those evergreen conversations through days and weeks and months can actually have like a huge damaging effect on the trajectory of your entire life. So with them, there's 2 individuals I'm thinking about. I stepped away. It wasn't sort of like, we're not gonna be friends anymore. I mean, I'm not that guy.
Right.
But I just kind of sort of like, it was a strategic kind of like, I'm just gonna have to sort of like maneuver myself away from that friendship somewhat, oh, we're still friends now, but we're not kind of like hanging out every week and we're not going to the pub and stuff like that. It's just, it was really, they were having a real negative kind of impact on me.
Do you feel like
personally.
that type of feedback or those type of responses to what your dream is and what you want to do is more about that other person than it is about you? It's more about their insecurities, right? It's more about...
It's about their vision of life, the way that they see their capabilities.
Yes.
And they're friends with you, and therefore your capabilities are the same. And we've known each other for like 5-10 years. So that means our capabilities are the same. You're not about to suddenly learn all of this amazing new stuff and like rocket ship your life, which actually can happen. You know, they just see themselves, they've got that lens that they're looking through, and they think that you're looking through the same lens, and they've got insecurities, and they've got they worry what they can do and what the capacity that they've got and where they're going to work towards in their life, and they kind of imprint on you as well. So
absolutely,
especially if you're really good friends, especially if you're good friends. So
I'm thinking about a couple people too. Man. I mean, before I started to take IG seriously and start to really think about posting, and which is something that really changed my life. It's the reason that we're here talking. But I remember thinking, oh boy, there are a couple of my friends who are going to hate this. And I just did a preemptive strike. I reached out via text and said, hey, I'm going to start doing a thing. And you might not love it because I'm going to really be aggressive about it, and I'm going to be talking to a community that maybe isn't you, like I'm not essentially targeting you as my community. And so it's okay if you don't like it. It's okay if you don't want to follow me, or you hide me, or you don't like all of my posts. It's okay, because I just want to let you know.
And how did it pan out? Like, power to you, man, for actually having the guts to do it. Like, I didn't have the guts, I think, to just be like, for whatever reason, it was, maybe you were more intuitive than I was. I didn't even know it was happening until it was happening. Like, it was like so interwoven in our relationship. I didn't have any foresight. I was like, oh shit. These guys really hate what I'm doing, and they're just, and it's not they hate what I'm doing. It's that they don't believe I should be doing it. They don't believe anybody else should do it. They just think, and they're very vocal about sharing that.
Yeah, I think similarly for me, I had just conversations about like, liking certain creators, and these particular friends were like, oh man, I don't like that at all. And then I just sort of knew, like if I start doing anything like this, if I start sharing my education side, because for the longest time, I don't know about you, but for the longest time, I really hid a lot of myself professionally. I didn't talk about educational concepts and how much really that I feel like an educator at heart. I was trying to be cool guy. I was trying to, and then not talk about certain music that I liked, and really always trying to read the room and trying to think about how to get the best leg up and not be too nerdy, not be too enthusiastic, trying to be cool, and I have...
Oh man, I needed some of that. I was like super nerdy and way too enthusiastic.
Well, I mean, but I don't know that you needed that, because Scott, I think that's incredible. I think that then you were able to be you. I was so self-conscious because I was trying to get a certain gig, or trying to be around, I was in these professional circles where I saw the way that these men were behaving, and I thought, oh, I must need to behave like that to get this gig. And that is just awful. It's such a rat race. It's so terrible. It feels so disingenuous. But there were some of these guys that I thought, oh man, when I start talking about how much I love Rush, or how much I love Tony Levin, and tapping on the bass, I'm never going to get this gig ever. I mean, I have friends in Minneapolis, man, that have been like, wow, you're brave, man, because you could have gotten this gig. You will never get this gig now. But
it's worth it though.
Oh, it absolutely is. To be yourself on the internet, to be yourself in life is so critical. It's huge. And it's led to all these other opportunities that ultimately are making me happier. right?
Yeah,
If you can be
yeah.
yourself. So, this friend and I have always, well, these friends and I have always had this kind of thing. And so
Up and
sometimes it's
down
good.
kind of
Sometimes,
thing. Yeah.
But I have released the animosity or the expectation that they're going to come around. If they do,
yeah.
awesome. If they don't, it's okay. Because what I'm building is really important to me,
Exactly. Like, it's strange, isn't it? Because if somebody had, if I look back at myself in my early 20s, like obviously sort of like, let's talk about like self-development, right? Self-development's been around for years. And I'll have probably seen bits and bobs when I was like, in my early 20s, and I would have just labeled it as bullshit. I was like, what is this crap?
Yeah.
But the actual gag is, it's real.
Yeah,
like it's real, and we are really malleable as souls.
Yes.
We can learn, and we can change direction, and we can actually advance our who we are through our entire lives. But for whatever reason, it's some people just don't see that. They just don't see and for me, I'm just like, I'm like, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to the next Tony Robbins seminar, and I'm not sort of like dancing around and hugging my partner.
Yeah.
But man, I'd give it a go anyway.
Yeah, for
sure. But I think that in terms of sort of like just broadly speaking, like how to like develop yourself from a personal standpoint and professional standpoint and skills standpoint is just something that we all should be just like challenging ourselves with every single day. Just how do we reach that next level of who we can be? Like, when sort of like when we get to the end, can you imagine at any point sort of like if you ever met the person that you could have been, and that isn't who you are, like that freaks me out. If I ever sort of like got to the end and then I suddenly met the person I could have been, and that was nothing like who I actually was. I was just far below who that person was.
Yeah.
And I'm just like looking at who I could have been. Man, that would be so painful to go through that experience. I want to meet that person. And by the way, I'm actually not religious. I don't, I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna find out what's on the other side. Maybe if there is another side, I'm like a spiritual person in terms of how I kind of just feel about life, but I'm not religious or anything like that. But if I did meet who that person could be, I'd want them to be exactly who I am. That I stretched myself into all of the different areas that I could move into, and I really tried to be the best version of myself that I could be. I meet that person, and I'm like, we're actually just exactly like each other, that kind of thing. Like,
I like that idea too. I love that idea. There's I have had all kinds of spiritual and philosophical phases in my life, but I really do love. I think it's sort of like an atheist. Maybe it's not an atheist idea, but this maybe even an agnostic idea that the time you have is the time you have. Right? And there's a dangerous notion, I think, in Christianity of like, none of this matters. None of this matters.
Because there's something else coming.
Because we're all going to be playing harps in heaven. And it's such a silly, and I think ultimately very selfish. It's like, I don't need to make myself better. I don't need to make anything else better because I'm going to be living without a care in the world. But I really do like this notion that the time you have is the time you have. And really the beauty of your departure is the space you create for something else. I had a professor in college who was a very outspoken atheist, and he said, he really challenged me because I came up a Christian, and he said to me, really, the most selfless thing, Christians call themselves selfless, but the selfless thing really is when you're gone, and guess what? The beauty of that is you now have made room for something else to flourish. You want to talk about selfless? It's you getting out of the frickin' way.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow. And he said, so the time you have is the time you have. And that, I have thought about that so much since. So I hear that spirit in you when you talk about this of like, when you die, when you're at the end, you want to meet the person that, is all of the things that you could have. Did you get there, right? Did you do all the things to make yourself, your relationships, your world?
Are we like twins? Absolutely.
I really like that thought. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I'm just into it, man. I'm just into sort of like challenge myself and I think that everybody should really get on this. Just like, because I think that we probably all live under our true capability, probably because of
Yes.
self-doubt, probably because we're worried about what people are going to think about us. Do you know what I mean, like all of that stuff, all of that kind of, we're just scared to sort of like to step out, to lean over the cliff. So
Yes.
yeah.
And check this out. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, man.
Do you ever talk to your kids about this? We're talking about haters. Now we're talking about self-development. We're talking about esteem. We're talking about life trajectory. How much, I mean, how old are your kids?
6 and 8.
Okay. So I'm 6 and 10. So
Got it.
it's very similar. And I have a way that I interface with my kids around mean comments that I'd actually love to tell you about. But I'm so curious how much your kids are involved in knowing about this trajectory for you, or knowing about how you deal with negativity, negative comments, haters, that kind of thing in your life. How much do they know?
Yeah, I think my eldest knows, like, because he sees the dislikes, he sees how I deal with it. I talk about it kind of in a way that's more kind of like monkey see, monkey do. Like, I try and just show him through example, like, oh, wow, somebody's left a comment, and or this is going on. And I try and just show him, I try and have him be with me as I experience it, and then so he can actually see how I deal with it, rather than say, you could do this or you could do that. I'm hoping that, like, we do talk about it, we laugh at sort of like,
Yes.
when somebody does a thumbs down on YouTube. He's got his own YouTube videos.
I know, I've seen
ribbing
him,
yeah, I was ribbing him the other day. I was like, dude, you need some dislikes, man. I was like, you've got no dislikes. I was like, do you know what that means? Not enough people are watching your videos. Come on, let's get some dislikes. And the other day, he ran through and he was like, Daddy, I've got a dislike.
Oh,
and he was like over the moon. We were laughing about it, high-fiving, just kind of sort of like, just reframing it in a way. So I do speak to my kids about it, and I speak to them. I think what I need to do a better job, man, this could be another episode completely, but yeah, I need to do a better job of like digging into like family values and like our values, like what's our values, our core principles as a family, like what do we feel is really important to us. So, because I think that in a way religion does that. It gives people core values, but we are not religious, right? Does that mean we don't give our, and probably religion's good for that thing, certain core values. And I'm talking, sort of like be a good person, but like more in depth kind of, I'm trying to think of something that's I think that's really important to our family is, man, there's a lot of stuff, but it could be that I really value leadership. I really value leadership. And I think that I didn't even know what leadership was until recently. And I think I wish that my parents had kind of sort of like, if they thought that was really important, and I don't mean leadership as in sort of like being a bombastic out there extrovert leader. I mean sort of like somebody that actually can lead and doesn't need to be doesn't wait to be told. They're not somebody that needs kind of sort of like ushered along. It's actually empowering to lead something, to hey, come on, stand up, we're going to do this together. Right. So like leadership's really important to me and my wife. We've never talked to that about the kids, and there's a bunch of other stuff that we've never talked about to the kids about. So how do we instill these, or at least acknowledge that these things within our family, the things that they should, at least understand and maybe think about as well. So I need to do a better job of that.
Oh, well, I mean, everybody does, right? And when you start doing it, let me know how it goes. because I need to be doing a better job of that as well. I mean, similarly for me, when I get a negative comment or I get something, my daughter, because she sees me do Instagram and YouTube, and she's so interested in that world and starts, is wanting to maybe do YouTube videos. We haven't done it yet, but I show her all the negative stuff. And then we decide on how we want to respond. We either decide to leave it alone.
Oh, that's really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
so
great.
I go into her room and say, Everly, I got another one. You got to check this out. It's, and so then she reads it. She's like, oh, Dad. And I said, I know. Now how should we respond to this? Should we just let it go? Water off a duck's back? Should we go in and look at something and see if we can turn it around.
Monkey see, monkey do, isn't it?
in?
It's you're teaching her like a process. It's really important to sort of like show them a process of, oh, I don't negatively feel emotional about this when it happens. So therefore, when it happens to her, she will have a framework and a process to work with. It's like when if I don't know, like parents that shout at their kids all the time.
Right.
Their kids are probably shouting at each other all the time and probably shouting at their parents and stuff.
Yep.
Like when our kids get really angry, like we had a full-on tantrum this morning with the youngest, like full-on tantrum. It was really interesting that both my wife and I lowered our voices and we were like talking real quiet. Yeah. Because we want to be, isn't parenting wild, man?
Is this just going to turn into a dad podcast, Scott?
Yeah. The ups and the downs of parenting. I love it. And man, what a learning curve that is. I
know.
So great. Dude, we should end it here. We should end it on the love of parenting, man. Yeah. Because I think it's, and maybe we should actually do a parenting podcast. It's an episode that
base dads.
Base dads, or something to do with what we've learned about parenting through bass playing, or maybe what we've learned about bass playing through parenting. Maybe that would be your best one.
Man.
What we've learned about bass playing through parenting. I've learned a lot.
I have too. I've got some thoughts about it.
Man, guys, if you're listening to this on obviously Stitcher or iTunes or Spotify, please leave us a review and a rating and all of that good stuff. If you've got a musician friend, hopefully you've got a musician friend or a bass player friend, send them a link to the podcast and say, hey, we've got these two bass dads who are talking about everything from music to religion to haters and everything in between. And we would, and hopefully we'll see you on the next episode. Ian, thank you. You're awesome.
Thank you, Scott. It was awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, guys. See you in a bit, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.